LV Cup is often used as a platform for young talent to get its chance, but this West Country derby was entirely decided by a man at the other end of a long career. That wasn't Bath's England hooker Rob Webber, whose long-awaited debut for the club after a shoulder injury was cut short before half-time, and it was the youngsters who did their stuff initially. Exeter caught offside with just 4 minutes gone, and Tom Heathcote, still just shy of his 21st birthday, put Bath ahead. Exeter responded in kind, not once but twice, through 19-year-old Henry Slade. But that was all the Chiefs had to show for a dominant first half hour, as they looked to make it 3 wins out of 3 in the group stage. A mistake by Bath scrum half Mark McMillan was a gift for Slade's second successful kick. But when Heathcote struck again, we were back where we'd started, at 6 points all. But 2 minutes before half-time came the rather unlikely turning point in the match, as McMillan was replaced by Peter Stringer, 35 years old now, and here at the Rec on a short-term deal from Munster as cover for the injured Michael Claessens. In the second half of this game, he was nobody's idea of a stand-in. His very presence seemed to steady a previously shaky Bath pack, and when they demonstrated their growing confidence 15 minutes into the second half, the Irishman was on hand with the finishing touch. And when that didn't look like being quite enough for Bath, he simply did it again, blindsiding the Chiefs to complete one of the more devastating cameos of the season so far. After 98 caps for Ireland, Stringer says he just wants to keep playing. Munster can call him back at any time and might be pondering doing so already. Without him, Exeter might have won, but they won't be that surprised that they didn't. They still haven't beaten Bath in a competitive match since 1978. You simply couldn't fault the ambition of either side in this game, but you could have an issue or two with the execution. For most of the 80 minutes on a sticky, stoop pitch, the teams traded mistakes rather than blows. After losing their first 2 games in the competition, Welsh needed to make something happen, but only Alex Davis could deliver. 10 players away on international duty gave Quins some excuse for the scrappy fare, but they responded quickly with probably the game's standout moment. Sam Smith stopped just short, but at this range, prop Mark Lambert was rather harder to halt. The conversion was the first contribution of an impressive afternoon from Ben Botica, who then added a penalty to stretch Quins' lead. The action was never less than absorbing, and as the Exiles attacked, referee Neil Hennessy found himself a little too closely involved. He was on his feet again in time to spot another Quins misdemeanour at the scrum that followed. And Davis stepped up to reduce the arrears to just 4 points. Fair enough at the time, given their dominance of possession, but it turned out to be all the visitors could manage, as Botica kicked the game out of their reach. 2 second-half penalties largely settled things, the second of those created by Tom Guest's moment of invention. And once they were 10 points in front, the Quins' second string could relax just a little. While Welsh simply dozed off completely. A terrible mess of a line-out 6 minutes from time was a gift for hooker Dave Ward, and Botica's conversion meant job done. A somewhat flattering scoreline and a fitting end to the game. One last turnover of possession before Mr. Hennessy called time. Harlequins' third group stage win, and a draw at Ospreys next week would now see them through. A touch of the last chance saloon for the LV Cup holders at Welford Road. Leicester kicked off second, bottom of Pool 2, all the motivation needed by the unmistakable figure of Logovihi Mulapola. The prop disappeared from view, but Wasps couldn't stop him until it was too late. By then, the Tigers had already lost the services of Tom Croft, whose first home appearance for 10 months lasted just 11 minutes before he picked up another injury, later confirmed as nothing serious. A setback dealt with easily enough, Croft's replacement Michael Noon over before half-time. The second half wasn't quite as comfortable for Leicester as the scoreboard was suggesting, but they had the men to make the key moments count. The sight of Matthew Tate in full flight is always to be welcomed, although probably not by Wasps. His try ended their hopes of a first win here since 2008. And the Tigers' work was completed by Nicky Goneva, the winger scoring 2 tries in the last 15 minutes. The first from close range as Wasps' limited resources, which included 5 debutants, started to crumble. Their selection policy rather undermined Wasps' claims that they were fully committed to the LV Cup. But before Gloucester could score again, the visitors did deliver their one moment of resistance. Hugo Southwell's try to add to Tommy Bell's earlier penalty. A mere consolation, but not the final word. In fact, Leicester saved the very best for last, fashioning a move that made light of the absence of 18 international players. Gloucester started things off before first Scott Hamilton, and then Mickey Young maintained the momentum. The Fijian with the finish in the end for Leicester's 5th try of the game. Wasps' first defeat in 8 matches ends their active interest in this competition for this season, but Leicester go to Scarlet next week with a decent chance of ending up top of their group. An important afternoon for Northampton, who had last week's disastrous European Cup defeat at Glasgow to get out of their system, and a 3-game tri drought at Franklin's Gardens to deal with too. Initially they were a little too anxious to manage either, but they had the advantage before this good chance went begging, and Ryan Lamb, the culprit with the misplaced pass, at least gave the Saints an early lead with the boot, which he added to early in the second quarter, and the home side looked well placed against a relatively inexperienced Gloucester outfit, which did, happily for them, include Shane Monaghan. The winger's superb break created the platform for Ryan Mills, who then did his best to share the glory. When there were no takers, the fly half finished himself to mark his first start of the season after knee surgery last summer. His conversion then edged Gloucester in front by 1, but they wouldn't move the scoreboard again all afternoon. Instead, Northampton found their scoring touch at last in pretty emphatic fashion. The forwards rumbling them up to the 22, before Lamb found Luther Burrell, who in turn found a very big hole in the Cherry and White's defence, through which he dispatched his 5th try of the season. That meant 13-7 at half-time, an advantage stretched by 2 more penalties from replacement Stephen Myler. And now Saints were putting a tricky few weeks behind them and playing with a bit of confidence and a little cheek. They introduced 3 fresh forwards before this line-out, and when the maul formed, prop Alex Waller broke free to add their 2nd try, and with it the win. Northampton now top of Pool 4, which is where they'll finish with a win at Exeter next weekend. For the Sale Sharks, the LV Cup was either an unwelcome distraction or a chance to build some much-needed momentum as they fight for Premiership survival. And it appeared that Steve Diamond considered it the latter, as he fielded a side containing 9 internationals against a young-looking Scarlets team. But it was the inexperienced visitors who made the early running. Fullback Gareth Owen threaded a hopeful kick through, but Danny Cipriani and Cameron Shepherd made a hash of clearing it up and gifted Andy Fenby the easiest of run-ins. Sale got themselves on the scoreboard with a Cipriani penalty, but another speculative kick from Scarlets produced another try. Fly half Owen Williams collected his own kick ahead and offloaded to half-back partner Gareth Davis, who beat the despairing tackle of Cameron Shepherd to dot down in the corner. Williams added the conversion from the touchline to put the Scarlets 14-3 up after 20 minutes. But for all their attacking promise, indiscipline was beginning to hurt the Welshmen. 2 more Cipriani penalties closed the gap to 5 points before Jake Ball was sin-binned. Rather than go for the post, Sale attacked the corner and were rewarded when Richie Vernon touched down to level the scores. Sale then took the lead on the stroke of half-time. Winger Charlie Ainsbury on hand to touch down after some good hands from the backs. The second half saw Sale carry on in the same vein. The 2 fly halves exchanged penalties before indiscipline again cost the Scarlets, with Rodri Jones this time sent to the sin bin. Danny Cipriani was the man to capitalise this time, finding a huge hole in the Scarlets' defence to touch down under the posts. With the win secured, Sale now went after the bonus point, and it came when substitute winger Charlie Ingle had the reach to place the ball on the line and give Sale a much-needed confidence boost and leave them in pole position in their group.
The Dragons took on the Ospreys in an all-Welsh Cup tie, and with both teams shorn of their international stars, it was the chance for the Welsh youngsters to show their stuff in front of a noisy Rodley Parade crowd. It was the home side who opened the scoring, with fly-half Stephen Jones slotting over a penalty with just a minute on the clock. He repeated the effort 5 minutes later when the Ospreys were penalised, again for not rolling away at the breakdown. This was to become a common theme throughout the game, and when Dragons number 8 Ian Jones was caught slowing the ball down, he was shown the first of 3 yellow cards in this game. Matthew Morgan slotted the resulting penalty. Barely 5 minutes after Jones had been sent to the bin, opposite number Morgan Allen was joining him for exactly the same offence. Stephen Jones sent over his 3rd penalty, but the Ospreys hit back through the boot of Morgan, and the sides went in 9-all at the break. The weather that had been bad when the game kicked off was now becoming horrendous, and both teams were struggling to create any rhythm. Stephen Jones had managed to put the home side ahead before the Ospreys scored the game's only try. From an attacking line-out, the forwards set the driving maul. Although that stopped just short, Jonathan Thomas was able to wriggle his way over and dot down to put the visitors ahead for the first time in the match. The Ospreys' lead was to be short-lived. The Dragons broke forward through hooker Sam Parry. When the Ospreys were caught offside, Jones continued his 100% record from the kicking tee to put the home side back ahead. When Rhys Webb was sent to the sin bin moments later, the game was up for the Ospreys. But Stephen Jones still had time to make sure of the win with his 6th successful kick of the evening to give the Dragons victory, their first in this season's cup, by 18 points to 14.
So that win for Dragons at Rodney Parade rounds off our review of this weekend's LV Cup action. Bath, Harlequins, Leicester, Northampton and Sale also making the most of home advantage on Saturday. On Sunday afternoon, Saracens kicked off life at their new stadium with a victory over Cardiff Blues. London Irish beat Worcester at the Madejski. It's looking good for Harlequins in Pool 1. They travel to Ospreys next week, while Exeter have a tricky-looking home tie with Pool 4 leaders Northampton. It must be a great relief for Steve Diamond to see his side at the right end of the table in Pool 2. London Irish out in front in Pool 3. While in Pool 4, Bath travel to Gloucester next week, their last chance to overhaul leaders Northampton Saints.